There we go. Hi, everybody. Happy New Year. Happy Midnight Sun Thursday. I guess we're still calling it that no matter what at this point. For those of you who don't know me, I am Amy Taylor, also known as Oh My Carlisle on Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, Poshmark, wherever there's social media presence, I'm Oh My Carlisle. Back in the day, when the peak Twilight times, I worked on His Golden Eyes and pagetopremiere.com. And I'm really, really excited for tonight's topic because, oh my Carlisle, we're talking about Carlisle and Esme. So this is actually based on your feedback. You know, earlier this, I guess back in the fall, we did a vote to see what people were interested about, what topics they wanted to hear about. And one of the things that you picked as your top was characters. And so then we had said, what characters? And first you said Atlas, which is fine. We did Alice. So if you want to view that one, it is on YouTube. But second up was Carlisle and Esme. And for me, that's my fandom. That is my role in the Twilight fandom. Peter Facinelli and Elizabeth Reeser knew me when they met me. So I am super excited that we're talking about them tonight. I could go on, but I'm sure we will hit other points about my Carlisle and Esme fandom during this conversation tonight. So let me introduce the rest of the people that are joining us this evening. First, I'm going to go over to Melissa.
Hey, everybody. I'm Melissa or Mel. Most of you are going to know me on Instagram as Rosemary85 or ladies of _Isle Esme. We have somebody new this week, Kat. We both helped to run that page. And back in the day, I ran Twilight Addicts Anonymous, something like that on Facebook. It's basically an archived group that doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, and we do Twilight Tuesdays.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that too. We'll remind you about that one later.
Twilight Tuesdays, there's t-shirts.
Twilight Tuesdays! You got the shirt! So, and you can all order your own shirt too. You can get on either my Instagram or Mel's. Heather, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Heather. It's HD Gilbert on Instagram, Twitter. You can come hang out with me on Facebook. I don't care, anywhere. I've been in the fandom for a pretty long time, and I'm best known for interviewing Kristen Stewart in a castle once. So yeah, that's my claim to fame.
That is not a bad thing to be known
No,
for.
I do not mind.
I'm like, I'm definitely jealous. So well, welcome back and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
And we have a new guest tonight. I'm so excited that Kat is joining us from Ladies of Isle Esme, who is an incredible hostess and led with Mel, the fantastic Forks events or Forever Twilight and Forks. I don't know what exactly we called it, but it was the weekend that we usually have FTF. They did a fantastic job hosting a whole bunch of events, had awesome guests there. And she made the coolest prize, which she totally needs to go into business for. So with that being said, Kat, welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for all those words of praise. It was a labor of love, and we had a bunch of fun. It was actually the Ladies of Isle Esme Twilight virtual event. But yeah, I'm from Chicago. I've been a fan since about 2008, 2009. I've gone to the Festival in Forks multiple times since 2012. And just love representing Chicago, the Latin community, moms, all of that in the Twilight community, because there's, we're diverse, we're all encompassing. And I have to say that preparing for tonight, I realized that whatever couple we're talking about, I fall in love with all over again. And they're like my new favorite couple. And I was very, very happy to do research on Carlisle and Esme. And I can totally see why Oh My Carlisle exists now.
And wait, show off your shirt.
Oh, this is the Carver Cafe shirt from the Ladies of Isle Esme campaign. Thank you, Cammie, for designing our shirt.
Yay. Love it. So, well, welcome. Super happy you're here and super happy that you're in love with Carlisle and Esme too. All right, Miss Lori.
Hi, I'm Lori from the Twilight Lexicon. You can find me on anything that says Twilight Lexicon. And I also have a personal Instagram that you can look up if you want to talk about planners and Disney and, other fandom stuff. But that's it. I almost wanted to just turn this over to Amy and just sit back and be I was like, I'm just gonna sit back and be like the participant observer kind of a thing, because even when I was making up the questions, I'm like, why am I making up the questions? Amy should be making up the questions. And I feel like the questions are like, because I'm a school teacher and this is, 2020 is just, I feel like 2020 just is continuing on. It's just never, the horror of 2020 is never going to stop. And so when I was putting together the questions, I'm like, I'm not thinking clearly. Are these even good? And I was like waiting for Amy to come back and say, why aren't you asking this, that, and the other? So totally tonight, Amy, if you're like, you know what we should really talk about? We should talk about this. I am not going to be offended. I'm going to be like, yes, we should, because it's like, oh, we're not worthy.
Well, and hopefully some people will also ask some questions in the chat too. Did anybody submit questions?
I didn't get any.
Okay. Well, everybody, I'm looking over here because the screen is over here with you all.
The question I'm getting is apparently Stephanie Meyer changed Bella's blood type from
yes.
negative. Yeah, and that email, I get that email almost every single day, and I'm like, I don't know.
Because she made a mistake. Like, she also moved the prom, so location.
Why
happens?
Car there? I don't know.
You're supposed to know everything, Lori.
No. When did the Mongols rule China? I'm sorry. I speak quotes. That's one of my favorite question movie quotes. That's from Bill and Ted's, by the way. All
yes,
right,
it is.
We are going to start with your favorite. And I thought about, do we go through every single book, or is that just going to take too much time? Plus, like, I think we were talking before we went live that there's not a lot of these moments. And so to go through every single book, like in the past, we went through, what's your favorite Alice moment in each book? Because she's like in all the books.
Everywhere.
There's not enough of Carlisle and Esme to like specifically like go through each book. So if in our discussion we don't hit all of the books, then like keep tabs on it, Amy, and say, hey, we didn't talk about something from Eclipse, and this is what we need to know from Eclipse. Okay, so keep tabs to make sure that we at least discuss something from each of the books. All right, so first of all, what is your favorite Carlisle moment? And I had a really hard time. I don't know if you guys did. I had a hard time finding just Carlisle, just Esme, especially just Esme. So what is your favorite just Carlisle moment in the books? And we're going to start with Amy. I think you probably don't have a problem starting any of these discussions.
No, but I did do like research and take notes, because I was like, I can't screw this one up. I will never live it down. So my favorite Carlisle moment is actually in New Moon, when Carlisle is treating Bella at the party, because it's this moment where he actually gets to talk. We're not actually hearing him through Bella. We're not necessarily hearing Edward's interpretation of something. We actually could like his real feelings about what's going on, what he thinks of vampirism, about Edward. And it's just a really real moment. And it's interesting because you kind of get how Edward filtered things that he told Bella, and Carlisle really lays out, this is how things really went down. So that is my favorite Carlisle moment in the books.
All right, Mel.
So along with Amy's answer, because I wrote that down as one of them. My other favorite is, we don't get a whole lot of it, but with Midnight Sun. Sorry if anybody has not actually read it. Spoilers.
Yeah. If you haven't read it, put your earmuffs on. When he decides to have Christmas for Edward in that first year, like it's such a sweet thing to like think about him doing that and like providing something that was more of like a normal type thing and not something that was vastly vampire. Okay, Heather.
I don't know if people saw me cheer when Amy said hers, because that was also mine, and I was excited that I matched. I feel like we're like playing match game, and I'm like, I matched. I did it. But I really like that scene selfishly because it's the first time that Bella gets a very like objective view on being a vampire, because Edward is just like so aggressive, and like we've talked about how moody e-boy he is, but like it's just, I felt like that scene was really important, and it's nice to get that perspective. And it is the only time that he's like truly talking and giving his perspective without anybody else there. Obviously people are listening, because who isn't ever listening to vampires, because they can all hear everything, but like it just felt like an intimate moment between the two of them. And it's one thing that I actually love that they like translated well to film, which like so much of Carlisle and Esme is just like cut / gone forever, or like very much done in mere like brief little like looks and things. That really felt like it showed his character, it showed his compassion. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it, probably more for Bella's sake, but even so.
And there's an extended version of that scene that is not in the extended edition of the film.
Wait, where is it? How have I not seen that?
You can find it. It was on the Walmart, I think, New Moon. If you remember, every like store had their own New Moon. It was on there, but you can find it on YouTube as well.
I know I did watch that, but I watched it since, because I remember I was in college when all the movies were coming out, and I was just buying like 8 different copies of every movie, and all of my friends were like, I don't understand, you have it. And I'm like, but it's different.
This one has the eclipse preview on it. This one has the deleted scenes. This one has the extended scenes.
Yeah. I need this 10-second clip.
I'm down with Star Wars.
Yeah.
Okay, Kat.
Well, I matched with Mel. Surprise, surprise, right? Carlisle at Christmas to me was so special because I think that he wasn't just doing it for Edward. Remember his background, his dad was a pastor, he grew up in the church. So it's probably very reminiscent of, his early life. It's magic for kids, like to discover that magic, especially as a parent, to see Christmas through your kids' eyes. It's like you relive all the magic again. So him bringing that to Edward and just sharing that special moment, and Edward realizing like this is really important to him, so I should really enjoy it. It was very touching for me. And I love Christmas. Christmas is like my favorite holiday. For those that don't know, in Puerto Rico we start Christmas celebration November 1st and it goes through mid-January. We celebrate yesterday Three Kings Day, but then we also have a big festival in San Sebastian. So for me it was just like, oh my gosh, this is where I connect with Carlisle. This is what seals the deal. But yeah, just them two together having that moment and the special holiday, just it warmed my heart.
So I agree that in the film especially, my favorite moment is the scene where he's stitching her up her arm in New Moon. But I love the scene that we got in Midnight Sun. We always knew that Edward went and off and drank blood and all that stuff. I love the scene of Edward coming back in Midnight Sun, and Carlisle's, and again, that's Esme's there too. I mean, it's like everything that's like really super good, it seems, Esme's right there too. But probably my favorite thing that I've ever read that like I like busted up and it blew my mind, it's actually in the guide. When we find out that Aro was so obsessed with the fact that Carlisle wouldn't drink human blood, that Aro, so Carlisle's hanging out with the Volturi, and Aro ordered Felix to take a profusely bleeding body and like just drop it on Carlisle's desk just to see what he would do. I was like, oh my gosh, can you imagine? What I remember reading that the first time and going, that's the stuff I want to know.
You and your villains. I love it.
Okay, so then what is your favorite Esme moment in the book? Trying to find something that's just Esme moment. And we're going to start with Mel for this one.
So it's not a very large moment, but because we've been rereading the books, it stuck out to me. And I even went back and like grabbed my copy to like see where I had marked. It's when everybody's coming home in New Moon And one of the first things out of Esme's mouth is, "You will never put me through that again." And she's saying it mostly to Edward. I mean, obviously it kind of goes, to everybody for doing that, but just see, like, knowing that she's so nurturing and caring, and then seeing her just kind of like lose it for that split second, that's probably my favorite moment, because it's a very, very mom moment, because my own mom has done that to me.
Pat, how about you?
I have to say Esme playing wingman. So in Midnight Sun, again, if you haven't read it, put your earmuffs on. But she's meeting Bella for the first time, and she, we're hearing her thoughts through Edward's, perspective, and she's very excited. And I love it because he's noticing that Esme is just as nervous as Bella when they're meeting each other. And so she's thinking like, wow, thankfully I'm so thankful that he finally found her. And then she goes to him, "Why don't you play for Bella on the piano?" And so then he's like, "I thought you said not to show off." And she said, well, she's thinking in her head, well, if she liked you before and was overwhelmed, this is going to seal the deal. And it's like, okay, mom, let's do this. She's hooking up her son. Let's, and for me, I love that. It's so Esme. It's her playful side. It's her loving Edward. And, really grateful at the fact that he's finally found his person. And, I think her of all people, because in her real life had two contradicting men, she meets, Carlisle at a young age, and that's her ideal of the perfect gentleman. And then she gets married, and that's like the total other end of the spectrum. So she really knows the importance of who Bella is in Edward's life. So for her to try to just, seal the deal for him, I thought was great. I loved it.
Heather, your turn.
It's funny, someone in the chat just said it, but I'm picking from the movie kind of book, but like the baseball scene. I just love how I've been in so many situations where I'm either new or I don't know anyone or I'm intimidated by people, and you kind of look for that person that's going to be like your helper and like is going to guide you through that situation. And Esme just like totally steps up. And like, obviously she would, but it's just like so nice. It's like Edward's playing, and it's kind of like when you go to a wedding with someone and like you don't know what to do, and like they're in the wedding and you're like, well, then I don't know anybody here. Like Esme is just like that person that you just like jive with, and you're like, yes, you're going to tell me all the hints and tips and tricks about everybody here, and we're going to have a blast. It's going to be great. And I just like, that's like the mood that Esme gave me. And it like immediately when I like watch it, when I read anything, it's just like, that's when I'm like, yes, I understand your abilities. I understand your like power. I understand kind of like what you're achieving with people, because you just immediately make them feel like they're at home and like they have a friend. So yeah, that's fine.
And it's such a cute moment because Bella's like, that's got to be a home run, right? Really?
Edward's fast. It's so cute.
I picked, for me, when it's a little bit similar to Kat's, but when she actually comes down in Midnight Sun, and she's like listening to Edward play piano, and they're kind of like working on the piano piece together. Because I hope I don't like get all emotional or cry or anything like that, but my son plays the piano, and I know exactly what that is like. When I'm listening to my son work through something, or he's fiddling around at the piano, and I come around the corner and I just want to listen to him, and he'll be like, "Are you videotaping me?" It's like he wants to play and he wants to get into his music, but then the minute you come around, and he's like, what? And I'm like, keep going. It's so beautiful. I like this. And he's like, So I don't know. I felt when that scene popped up, I was like, I know exactly what that's like. And someone this was getting a lot of chat in the chat box. Let's see. Montserrat says, in the movies I like when they're voting, and Esme says, you've chosen not to live without her, which leaves me no choice. I won't lose my son.
No, Carlisle says that.
Carlisle says that. Oh, so maybe I'm back a little bit, that she's talking about her favorite Carlisle moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the baseball scene. Okay. So,
Wait,
what?
I didn't go.
Amy, sorry. I totally skipped you.
You totally skipped me.
I would go last. And
I mean, if you don't want me to share, like, that's fine, but
I don't want to hear what you think about Esme.
whatever. So yes, I loved like everything that everybody said, and I loved all the little moments of Midnight Sun. But the one that like I remember like stuck with me was toward the end of Breaking Dawn when they're on the field and there's kind of the whole moment of like there's no hope, you know, is there, when Carlisle asked about like is there any hope or something like that, and Esme's kind of standing back, and at times like Edward's commenting or Bella's commenting about like here's Esme whimper, but there's kind of this moment where she goes past Edward and Bella and like touches both of them and goes and stands beside Carlisle, and like that moment I was like, why did we get more of this in these 4 books? Like that, like her going to the front of the pack, being in front of the family, saying this is where I like, showing where she belongs. Like it was a wordless moment, but that it was just, I remember tearing up like reading it the first time. I was like, that's what I wanted all throughout it.
Esme taking charge.
Esme taking charge, but also saying like, you know, this is where I belong, is at the front of my family, here next to the man of my dreams that I've been with for, you know, 90 years. So yes, I loved that moment. And, you know, in the movie that kind of starts from the beginning with them being next to each other. And I love that too. But that moment in the book, that, and I'm like, and Edward and Esme, the idea of Edward and Esme dancing at the wedding reception, which I will say, I found that interview from when I first met Elizabeth Reeser, and somebody filmed when we were interviewing with Access Hollywood, and Scott Mance like asked me about like things I was looking forward to, because it's before Breaking Dawn Part 1, and I was like, I can't, you know, wait to see Edward and Esme dance at the wedding reception, and you kind of see Elizabeth make this look, and I'm like, right there, she was like, that's not happening. Yeah, I have to post that.
Yes, please.
So now, what is your favorite Carlisle and Esme together scene? And we'll start with, let's see, favorite Carlisle and Esme. What is your favorite moment of Carlisle and Esme? And I said in the films. Okay, so we were looking at Carlisle and Esme in the book, but in the films. Heather, we're gonna start with you.
I don't know why I'm realizing all my answers have to do with Bella, and that was not intentional. Just like, okay, Heather. When they meet Bella in the movies, it is my favorite. Like her walking into that household is like by far my favorite thing in the entire world. And I'm obsessed with like, it feels so genuine and so pure. And Esme's so excited. And like Carlisle's like really trying to like be like that guy that's like, you didn't see me in the hospital, I'm just a cool dad. And I'm just so obsessed with it. I can't. It's like, it really feels like awkwardly meeting a family that is not vampires, just awkwardly meeting your boyfriend's family. And I love how each of them played it so just, I'm over the moon obsessed with it.
Okay, Amy.
So my favorite is the deleted scene from Twilight.
That's what I had.
Oh my God. Like you have this one like intimate moment with Carlisle and Esme where they're actually talking to each other and nobody else is around, and she pushes him up against the wall, and it's in the extended edition. It's in a different place than it originally was in the script, but it is in there. And that moment unto itself, that and the credit scene or the credits in Twilight, that way the camera swoops down as he is biting her. I know he's turning her into a vampire, but it's like the sexiest freaking thing ever. Like it's so hot.
Wait, that's when Rob was like, I didn't know we were doing sexy faces during this, because like hers is like so much more sexual, and Rob's like made it look like he was like mad. Does anybody else remember that?
He's in pain.
Yeah, he's like, I didn't know we were like going that route with it, because like hers is so sexy.
So sexy.
Like, share my screen and play the deleted scene. Is there a better romantic moment?
It's so good. So good.
Okay, let's see who is next. Heather.
No, I just went.
Oh, you went first?
Yeah.
Look at me.
Lori.
Go again.
I'm getting text messages from my school because they can't determine if we're going to be AB or remote or what. I'm sorry. So I keep getting messages from my school. I'm distracted. Kat, your favorite Carlisle Esme moment.
I'm gonna say favorite for the simple fact that it makes me cry every time. It's not a happy moment. It's not nothing good. But the moment that Esme sees Carlisle dead, beheaded, the look on her face of pure like horror, it hits me because I think that in the movie, and this is probably an answer to my another question as well, but like you get the fact that they love each other, but the depth of not just like, it's gonna sound very elementary, but not like heart love, but like physical love, like they're connected on so many levels. So when she makes that face, it like breaks everything inside of me. I've seen it, I don't even know how many hundreds of times, but every time it gets me and it makes me feel for her and it makes me realize like they have that deep of a love. And then if you think about it, that whole end scene, however long it takes for us, is really a blink of an eye for all the vampires standing there and they're like, what just happened? And so when the Volturi leave, they turn to each other and the elation that they feel and they're so happy and they kiss and they, they just look into, that is what I love. Like the whole, like, this is who they are. This is what would happen if he wasn't there. And yeah, it just, it's my favorite scene. It's not a good scene, but it's my favorite.
Mel.
So my two moments, because I have two, they're both actually in Eclipse, which is surprising since that's my least favorite film. And partly the one because it's a little funny. When they're sitting at graduation, because I know like kind of the backstory of they were both sitting there and neither of them could see out of their contacts. So neither knew when the other looked at them. But it's just like, it was so cute seeing them, like, they're just so proud of their graduates. And just the way that they, even though they couldn't see each other and they look at each other at different moments, like, that's just how parents react. And just seeing them so proud that, like, not only did their kids graduate for the umpteenth time, but then knowing that that was probably the same reaction they had of Bella graduating, like, that got me. And then the other part is they actually switched it up from the books a bit. I don't know if it's just so that, they both had more lines, but when they're essentially defending Bree Tanner in Eclipse, they're just so, like, Esme is just so impassioned in that speech of like, you can't kill her. Like, no, our family will take care of her. It's our responsibility, which Edward is kind of the one that says all of that in the book. But like getting to see that from Esme and Carlisle's perspective instead, that got me. I'm like, they just want her to have like a normal life now. Like, just let her do it. If Edward would have said that, I probably wouldn't have felt the same way.
Yeah, I'm with Amy. Mine is the deleted scene. But I also like, I like any time that if you pay attention, I'm sure this was just something that Peter Facinelli and Elizabeth Reeser discussed, like from the get-go as actors who probably didn't get a lot of direction and knew that their characters weren't on screen very much. That it's just like anytime they maneuver just in the background, they always maneuver like together or towards each other. And because I'm always thinking about these things as an actor or a director, unless specifically, he's been told, go over there and save Bella because she's bleeding, But whenever they like enter a room, they always end up together. And like, they're always next to each other. Whenever they like walk down somewhere, they always end up together. And so like in the, I think it was Amy just recently posted a picture at Bella's wedding and Carla and Esme are sitting together. And then you see Bella and Edward in the background. And it says, oh, look, it's the most romantic couple in all the Twilight saga. And Bella and Edward are there too.
That was somebody else who created that, but I did post it. So
It was like,
my stories.
Absolutely true. Absolutely. And I think they just did, as a couple, getting so little of anything from these scripts. I just feel like they did a really good job of communicating that couple's relationship. Mm-hmm. Where, I mean, I get a little bit of that feeling from Rosalie and Emmett in the sexual nature of their relationship. Does anybody disagree with me that Rosalie and Emmett probably have a much more sexual relationship than romantic? But like almost Jasper and Alice, I mean, it almost feels like forced, whereas with Elizabeth Reeser and Peter Facinelli, it just kind of felt natural. I don't know. There's just a different feeling watching the two of them together on screen than the other couples, to me.
What I always say to people is, especially if you've watched the movies so many times, is just watch the movies sometime and don't look at the main action. Watch what's going on in the background. And that is sometimes some of the most entertaining things that you never even spotted because you were so focused on Edward's hair that you didn't notice what was going on in the background. And there's a lot of times there's little things that you're just like, and I've seen that on stage too, like even in other films as well. Like there are definitely little moments and little looks and things that your eyes wouldn't naturally go to it. But if you watch it from that perspective, it opens up a lot more to you and what's going on with the characters in the story.
All right. Your favorite line said by either Carlisle or Esme. Favorite line. And so we're going to start with Kat.
I have to agree with Montserrat on that one where it's the voting scene in New Moon and Carlisle just steps up to Edward. Like he doesn't even cast his vote because he already knows that Edward knows what he's saying. And he's like, you've chosen to live without her. What choice have you given me? And it's so classic Carlisle. Like he loves and he's so compassionate. And no matter how much he wants to make Edward happy, he can't because then he's sacrificing his son. And he knows how it's going to affect not just him, but everybody else, especially Esme, because Esme does have such a special place in her heart for Carlisle. So that was my favorite.
Lori, you're muted.
Yeah.
I'm muted. Yeah, my box popped up and said, you're muted. It's Mel.
So for Esme, hers was, and I actually was able, thankfully, to pull it from the guide. He's been the odd man out for far too long. It's hurt me to see him alone. I thought that is just like, she's so worried about Edward, and it's just, there's just something there. I'm like, it's like a mom's dream to just see her kids like be happy. So that was my favorite from her. And then Carlisle's, it's actually kind of pulled from a longer quote, but it's in New Moon. And he says, it's pleasant knowing that thanks to what I can do, some people's lives are better because I exist. And that, for whatever reason, I feel like because of all the crap that all of us have gone through with this past year, that just like, it hit me so hard. And it's not even necessarily that like, it's just, about him. It's also that like, I feel like it's something that we all can relate to in some way. So that just, it stuck with me. And I knew kind of where it was when I was looking for this stuff earlier. And I was like, I know it's in New Moon. I know it's when he's talking to Bella. And then I found it and I was just like, it's so true. So that definitely stuck with me.
So Amy, let me get, can it be the line that like every time we talk about the guide, you tell me I didn't put this line in the guide?
I, like everything in life, I just had to decide what to do with what I was given. So same scene as Mel's. Carlisle says a lot of profound things during that, but that was the one. you there?
Went away. Your picture went away.
Sorry, my mom was calling. So yeah, that's the one that sticks with me. I mean, there's a couple other ones that I like that are kind of, to me, moments of, I see like Carlisle's youth or like humor. Like, I've never been to veterinarian school. For Esme, I kind of go the scene in the airport in New Moon too, that like, you will never put me through that, or what is it? You will never put me through that again. Like, I can just hear her saying that. And that was like the scene I wish that was in the movie. That isn't.
Kat, how about you?
I gave my favorite Carlisle one, but I knew Esme. Again, Esme being his wingman. And even though it wasn't like a spoken thing, it was just said in her mind, it's my favorite. And I love that about Esme.
What was it again? Say it again.
I don't have the exact, it's in Midnight Sun, but where she's telling him to play the piano, and then in her mind she talks to Edward and tells him, well, if she liked you, this will definitely seal the deal.
Mhm.
Okay, Heather, do you have a favorite Carlisle or Esme line?
Yeah, I was actually going to go with Esme, and I was actually going to go with the same one that Kat just said, because I love how Edward is kind of like playful with her in a way that he isn't with Carlisle, and that she's definitely kind of interpreting what she's saying in a lot more meanings, where she says, I like tried to copy it, but I was using my Kindle, so it did not work very well. But basically she's like, there's exceptions to every rule, which to me felt like she was saying that not just about playing piano and showing off, but like about Bella in general and him kind of living his life and doing that. And I like that she's not as, obviously with him it's different because he can read your mind, but she's not as like in your face with that stuff. It's a little more like, let me lead you to the answer that I know you were going to get to no matter what. That feels like a very maternal thing, and it feels like something that she is definitely doing to all of the kids. Like there's like, as I know I've mentioned it before, how I want like a big brother feed of just like the Cullen household, just like on a day-to-day basis. Like I feel like that's the sort of stuff that she's doing. She's just over there like, is that really what you want? And they're like, oh damn it, like mom. So
Imagine if they ate like how much food and how much time she would spend making sure that everybody got their favorite food and ate healthy. And oh my gosh,
why do I feel like she's like, you only had mountain lion last week, I really need you to have a bear, okay? Like you need to change it up.
oh my gosh, that needs to be like on a shirt now. Oh, we had mountain lion. What we need to get everybody.
Mom, I like mountain lion.
Can we have mountain lion for dinner today?
Not deer again.
It's definitely Emmett too. It is 100% Emmett.
You don't get any bear until you finish the mountain lion. Okay, did everybody go on their favorite line? So I like, correct me if I'm wrong, does he say to Bella in the movie in New Moon, does he say, I don't want to be a monster? Is that what it is? When he's fixing her up?
That's Edward.
Yeah.
No, what does Carlisle say as he's fixing her up that says, I'm damned. That's what it is. He says, what's the line about being damned?
I hope that I get something. I hope I get credit for trying, or even if I'm damned regardless.
Because in the movie, I'm talking about in the movie, he doesn't say it.
Yeah.
He doesn't say that in the book, does he?
He says a version of that.
See, I didn't do my homework as good as you did.
Yeah, well, when I only pay attention to 2 characters now.
I don't have my book near me, so I'm just gonna awkwardly stare at all of
looking.
you.
I'm in the right spot.
No, but you're all looking at books, and I'm just like, hey, what's up?
We're damned regardless, but I hope, maybe foolishly, that we'll get some measure of credit for trying. But that's not what he says in the movie. Anyway, I like the way it plays out in the movie. And
Yeah, I mean, it's something along the lines of, even if I'm and regardless is in there.
And she says, like damned. You can't mean that.
Carlisle,
You can't
be damned.
So I like that. I like that. And then I also like, wait a minute, I did take notes. Wait. So I know that you hate this line, Heather, when he's discussing that in Midnight Sun, that you can't just run off and kill the Cullen girl. I think he just like scolds Rosalie. He's like, look, I let you kill those dudes when they raped you because they were awful, but this is different. And then he says, every life is precious. I think that just really sums up Carlisle's intention and the whole way that he looks at his, I hate to say life, his because they're not alive, his
Existence. Yeah.
Every life is precious. And I know it makes me think,
my precious. It does. I can't stop. It's fine.
All right. So let's see. Do you have a line that is said about Carlisle or Esme that you particularly like? And I know I asked that question thinking I'm going to have time to look, and I didn't truly have time to look, but do you have it? Does somebody say something? And it might even be more like Edward because he's the one that talks the most about them. But do you have something that was said about them that gives a really good clue into who they are or what they've done that you particularly like? And I have down that Heather is first on this one.
I actually have one. It is Midnight Sun, so it is Edward. And it's Carlisle had put his life on hold to deal with me, but I was determined that I would soon be an asset to him rather than a burden. And I feel like that is the most Edward thing to say, first of all, and just completely explains why he is such an emo depressed boy who's always trying to overcome things and be better, because he feels indebted to Carlisle even so many years later, and he never feels like he's good enough. And I feel like, though I'm obviously happy Carlisle changed him, and yes, I feel like that really messed with him because he felt like he wasn't good enough for it in the first place. However that kind of teenage angst evolved in him made it worse, and Carlisle just was always trying to fight against that in my opinion of how I'm interpreting how Edward kind of the Christmas and all that stuff. Carlisle was just trying to be no, I just saved you and I just want to take care of you and let's be best friends and maybe I could be your dad, I don't know, what's up. And I feel like Edward just went so hardcore dramatic on that is a really good indication of that for me, that really kind of represents him throughout all of the books and movies.
And then on the flip side of that, in the movie, I'm not sure this is in the book, but in the movie, when Edward then says, I never thanked you for this life, after all of that emo crap that he's gone through. after all his... Amy's raising her hand.
Oh, yes. The line is, I never thanked you. You still didn't thank him.
I mean...
And now it's not in the books.
Melissa Rosenberg, where are you at, girl?
So let's see. Kat, you're next.
For me, I think it's Charlie. When they're in Carver Cafe and they're sitting there, because again, Charlie's getting a different perspective of them. And so even from the outside, his whole sticking up for them was those kids don't ever give me trouble. You're lucky that his wife wanted to live in a small town. He's a great doctor. And, and the indication is too, they're great kids because they have great parents. You know, they're very mild mannered, they're very nice people, they're very warm, they're very welcoming. And so just to see that from Charlie's eyes and to get that, it says a lot, because that's what the whole town of Forks is getting and seeing, you know? So for me, that was really special. And I love that he was just like so ready to just go to bat for them, you know?
And as the chief of police, he knows who the Rugrat kids are that are causing problems.
Mm-hmm.
And usually, if you think this is, I'm not trying to be like overly stereotypical, but a lot of times when you think of a family with a bunch of foster kids, you think what's wrong, or adopted kids, you think what was wrong with these kids that like they're all adopted, or what's wrong with the couple that they've got all these adopted kids. And so for him to say none of them have given me trouble, they've never given me trouble, he's obviously got his crap together, and I hate that they give him such a bad time, such a hard time. Yeah. That means something coming from the chief of police.
Mm-hmm.
With your teenage 100-year-old kids
that are all dating.
Okay, Mel.
So mine isn't like a super cutesy one or whatever, but I'm a very visual person when I read. So when we got a moment from Bella of, it was like meeting a fairy tale, Snow White in the flesh. That to me, it immediately just made me go, okay, that's what Esme looks like. She's just like this adorable human being, vampire, but she's just this adorable thing that like I can see like that little heart-shaped face, and you know, just the contrast between, you know, what does her hair look like and what does her face look like, and just all of that combined, I was like, okay, now I can visualize it better.
What does she say about Carlisle when she first sees him?
A lot.
Her description is better than his of Edward's. Where is? Seriously, there it is. He was blonde, hotter than any.
Yeah, it was like he's the hottest thing ever.
Yeah. Well, because he is.
Amy's like, yeah, I know.
I know. That's why I was interested.
He was young. He was handsomer than any movie star I'd ever seen. And from Charlie's description, this had to be Edward's father. So the fact that she says basically he is the most gorgeous man and Esme is this perfect like Disney princess.
I want to know what Charlie described him as. Was he like...
Charlie talks about how all the nurses react to it.
Right. But it's more like, I want to see like Charlie and Billy just like sitting drinking some fucking beer and just being like, oh, Carlisle.
Like, how does he do that?
Yeah.
Well, Billy doesn't have nice things to say about Dr. Cullen, but
It's true.
Yeah.
But
Charlie doesn't know that.
No, he does.
But is it any coincidence that basically we have Prince Charming and a Disney princess are the main couple? I mean,
and again, why would they be my favorites?
Beats me.
well, I do remember in the movie, because I've never, and I know Heather like is like rolls her eyes at me at this. I've never like been, oh my gosh, Robert Pattinson. Oh!
Sorry, I'm enough for the both of us.
It's Rob, whatever. But when Carlisle came in, I was like,
I heard the chief's daughter was here.
sign me up for that. And I have never seen Rob pose the way that Peter Facinelli just posed a couple of months ago. So.
I think everybody was coughing and had a fever when that picture came out. I was one of them. I need a doctor.
There is time. Batman could change your mind. You never know.
And I'm here for Rob, but
okay, Amy,
doctor.
about Carlisle or Esme that was said that you particularly like.
So I capture thing as Carlisle and Esme. So it was funny because I pulled like 3 paragraphs from Midnight Sun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It might be the same paragraphs that I pegged.
You have multiples?
Well, let's see.
So I have, of course, the classic, if Carlisle was the soul of the family, then Esme was the heart. This is more than a line. Like, am I okay to read more than a line? More than 80 years had passed since Carlisle found Esme, and yet he still looked at her with the incredulous eyes of first love. It would always be so for them. He'd never seen himself as a possible object of romantic love before that moment. It seemed contrary to what he was, a vampire, a monster. The knowledge I gave him changed the way he looked at Esme, the way he looked at himself. And I had one more too, but
that one was mine. That one, I had the same one for that. But what's your third?
Oh.
Come on, you have been waiting for months and months to talk about Carlisle and Esme. So give us your third one. Come on.
So for me, it was effortless and instinctive to fall into my role as son. Love came easily, though I'd always attributed that more to who he was as a person and to his initiating my conversion. So whether for these reasons or whether it was because Carlisle and Esme were simply meant to be, even with my gift to hear it all as it happened, I would never know. She loved him, and he quickly found he could return that love. It was a very short period of time before his surprise changed to wonder, to discovery, and to romance. So much happiness. I'm like, why am I not getting this until 2020? Although some of that we have gotten, was in the draft, but my gosh, I was like, why did we see more of this in the first 4 books, or even the guide?
It's because 2020 was so crappy. We had to get a little bit of something wonderful for, Carlisle and Esme romance, hints of romance.
Yes. So happy.
Who did I not come to?
You.
Me?
Yep.
Me. Things that was said about Carlisle and Esme. I like the so that Edward describing their romance for one thing. But you also get the sense that even from the Quileute side of things, that the way that the Quileutes talk about them, that as a whole they don't like the cold ones, but Carlisle actually knows how to deal with them and converse with them and like kind of keep it together. Where I have a feeling that if it was just, Rosalie and Emmett trying to come back into town, people would be like, no. Where's Carlisle? Okay, so the next question. What is something about Carlisle and Esme that isn't clear in the films that you wish fans knew about them, either as a couple or an individual? And I will let Amy go first because I know there's a whole bunch. So I'll let Amy go first and we'll figure out if we have something other than what she...
I was going to say, can I just ditto anything Amy says right now?
All right. Yes, I have a list. It probably isn't even everything. Let's see. Carlisle never says Esme's name once in all the films. And the only time that I think she does say Carlisle, she says it in the deleted scene, I think maybe once in Breaking Dawn. But we never hear Carlisle say Esme, ever.
Weird. I didn't realize that.
I didn't realize.
Yeah. So Carlisle's backstory. We got a very, very, we have an entire chapter called Carlisle. And even before that, we have part of a chapter before the Carlisle chapter in Twilight. And we don't get to see any of that. We get little hints of it while music's playing from Edward. But that's it. And, that's why I appreciate Eclipse as a movie so much, because we do actually get to see Jasper and Rosalie's. Esme, well, I mean, we could only get her backstory in the books, so I can't imagine that we would have gotten anything in the movies, but man, it would have been nice. And nor did we get any sort of acknowledgement that she had a child, which, you know, she could have thrown out in the baseball scene, just like she does in the book. Like, oh yeah, sorry, I had a kid. And I jumped, yeah, whatever. And along with Esme's backstory, her strength. A lot of times she's just kind of there. And that's a thing that's like missing, you know, throughout the stories, but also just how strong she is as a character. She's not just window dressing or housewife. She's actually pretty accomplished. And also,
to me, that's the biggest one for Esme, that she becomes kind of just like a back character. Yeah. Because originally, when the very first draft of the script that MTV bought got rid of all of the Cullens except for Carlisle, Edward, and Alice. All the other Cullens went away. And so when Summit said they wanted to make the film, Stephanie insisted that all of the Cullens are there and that they are used the way that they were presented the way that they're presented in the books. And so I often feel like Esme was plopped in because, and I get this about Jasper too, that they were just kind of like plopped in because they didn't know what to do with them.
Well, I mean, the problem is it's the same problem with Esme though in the books. Like, she's not there enough. You don't know her story in the books. It's only through the correspondence with Stephanie Meyer that was like, wait, what? Esme was married and she had a kid and she was abused and like all this backstory. Oh, and she met Carlisle. That would have been really important to share with Bella. Like, oh, by the way, I was a human teenage girl when I first met this vampire. So like all those things that would have been so helpful, and none of it is in the books. And none of it is still, the little bit that's acknowledged even in Midnight Sun, it's still never established that she was, you know, like all the things, like you never get Charles's name. I don't even know if they actually say husband. It still talks about the baby. It's just maybe like her having a tragic background, but I don't know if it actually says that she was married.
Well, I think we talked about this once. I think we talked about this once, just from the period of time that she lived. Mm-hmm. It would have been very scandalous for her to have a baby without being married.
But she's also very strong and she goes off on her own and does have a baby without her husband there. Other things, that she was responsible for the cottage. The movie makes it look like it's a gift from Alice. And I'm like, no. And it was Esme. And even things that were written at the time said gift from Alice. And I was like, give her that. And then just also how important Carlisle is to the overall story. I feel like there were some things like the whole Carlisle, I never thanked you, that were forced toward the end of Breaking Dawn to go, oh, we need people to really care about him, because the battle that we're going to show you, the sequence, is really not about Renesmee. All these people came because of Carlisle. And the reason why they charge is because you killed Carlisle. And so you kind of had to suddenly make people care, who had just seen the movies, really care about him when he really is the soul of the family. So that to me was like a big thing where there was opportunities. And like, we know that there's a deleted scene, or a scene we've never seen from Breaking Dawn Part 1, where Carlisle and Edward have like the talk. And I wish that we could see that scene, because it kind of sets up, I think it was supposed to, you know, pretty much bookend, like between that scene and the scene that was, I've never ripped thank you and still haven't thank you. So those are kind of the things that I had on my list. And just also, I mean, well, I could go on and on because there's things with the books too, but like never seeing Esme really interact with Renesmee as grandma. So things like that. We do get to see Carlisle at least measuring Renesmee.
So let's see if anybody can add to that. Kat, you were like going, what do you think?
Well, because I feel like they do downplay Carlisle's character. He is pivotal. He brings this whole thing together, you know.
Literally, they wouldn't be there if it wasn't for him.
Right. And it's funny because I didn't even pick that. Mine was like totally other way. I think the one thing for me, I really wish that the Twilight deleted scene between them, like, there's some pow chicka wow wow moments that we could have had that would have really gave some oomph to that. Esme's not just a mother and I'm caring, and Carlisle's not just my superpower is compassion. To me, he's that guy looking in the mirror like, does she see me? Do you see me? Because we're here. Does she like us? Like, it doesn't come through enough for me. And I say the same thing about Rosalie and Emmett in the films. Like, in the books, that's all we hear. They're breaking houses. They got to stay away for 10 years. But where is that in the movie? You know what I'm saying? So the deleted scene in Twilight, I was like, yes, I am here for this. Can we have some more? They were the first couple to get together,
We need a movie or a series called Twilight, The Sexcapades.
All of the fan fiction.
Twilight adult content only. But I'm saying they hinted at like the emotional side of it, because the little touches here and there, that's great. I love it. But like, there's a physical side to it too. We all seen the pictures of Peter. Come on, hello. She saw it. She that's his wife. Like,
Especially since Bella is like so focused on sexing Edward. Like, why? Like, clearly sex is a thing here. Let's talk about it for everybody.
She pushes him against the wall.
Hey, wait, let me rewind this. Why didn't I see this before? This is a deleted scene. Oh my God, I loved it. It showed her assertiveness, her playful side, her sexy side, And I was like, we need that. We need more than just one dimension of this mom. As a mom, I need this. I need you to show that moms can be more than just, did you have your bear today? Or did you eat mountain lion? Because I had my cougar over there, like, come on.
I'm like, that's my Esme. That's where, like, yeah, I see that there's so much more to her. She's not just the mom. She's like, we're having sex. Like, I'm doing it with the doctor. And yeah, everything will work out, but me upstairs. The kids are gone.
Since we're going down that rabbit hole, I imagine, and like, this has nothing to do with my own personal life, not at all. I imagine that Esme's, her first sexual experience was with this guy that was not that great. Wasn't all that wonderful. So not only was when she finally got with Carlisle, that it wasn't just that they were vampires and like it seems to heighten the sexual experience, but like I totally imagine her when it's done going, so that's what it's supposed to be like. Oh, let's do it again.
And think about it. She met him when she was younger. That was her ideal of a man. And then the whole end scene, the end credit scenes where it's like she's really, into him, biting her, you know what I'm saying? Like that whole, you would think that, okay, let's show just a little bit more, like just a little bit.
I would say one thing I will add before because I know we're probably going to move on, but what Amy said about how Renesmee, she's like not involved with that. It surprised me that they made her such a background mom character, but they completely missed this massive opportunity to not only have her talk about, hey, I was a teenager in love with a vampire too, haha, girl, got you, but also like, hey, you're pregnant and you're going through this alone because Edward doesn't want you to have this kid. I also understand you there. Like there was so many places for that in Breaking Dawn that were just like not, and to me that would have been really easy for them to do in the movie because she's basically a background character at that point anyway. Like you don't really need to have Alice interacting with Bella or Rosalie throwing a dog bowl at Jacob. You could have had Esme kind of chatting. No offense, Mel, I know we love Rosalie, I'm sorry. But it just feels like that would have been a better use of that, given that it's such a serious topic and it was like clearly tearing the family apart. And I know we've had like a lot of kind of conversations about like why Carlisle was on Edward's side or whatever, but like Esme really had a chance there to relate and kind of insert her background. And it was just like, anyway, Jacob, I was like, why? We all know I love Jacob.
And being that like Bill Condon actually made decisions to insert Esme more into Breaking Dawn. You do see her more in those films, and there's little moments that were added that are not in the books. Like that, you're right. That would have been like the ideal. If you're going to add something, instead of her handing sandwiches to Leah and and Jacob and Seth, like how about having her interact more with her granddaughter and her pregnant daughter-in-law?
Mhm. Totally.
Mel, you're the one that hasn't chimed in on any of this.
I mean, basically just reiterate what everybody says. I just think that there's not enough, and we also don't get enough of them in the books to really base a whole lot of it off of either. I just feel like you don't generally and genuinely see what Carlisle and Esme's relationship is. Whether it's, you know, showing full out their compassionate side, you get to see a lot more of Carlisle on that aspect, but you don't get to see a whole lot of Esme on that side of it. And you're just like, okay, but like, I know she's there for every single person, whether they're her family or they're not her family, but where is she? Like, she's not on screen. She's not here. Like, we know she's kind of a homebody based off of, you know, things that get said in the books, but where is she?
Right.
Good question.
Where's she doing the graduation party?
She's making
Exactly.
I mean, it's like, it's a party in her house. And then they're like, oh, let's, you know, the wolves come in and let's have a whole like huddle. Where the hell is Esme? The mom, the parent, the chaperone.
Well, okay, so Mel kind of touched on that Esme is such a homebody. And this might go into a little bit of the next question about like, what do you think their superpower is? Not that they have a real superpower, but Esme doesn't like go out into the community the way that everybody else does. We know that she's a designer, and I'm sure she has done some things for and like an artist, and that she has done some things that have garnered attention over the years, but she pretty much just stays home. Do we have a reason why? Does it say somewhere? And I am just, because this year I am just so flummoxed with school. Do we have a reason why?
Edward says a little bit like about it in Midnight Sun, but I don't feel like it totally reflects, because in the beginning of Midnight Sun, they're like, oh yeah, like Esme got invited to like this garden party or whatever. Like she did go out to something in Forks. She has degrees, she's gone to school, like she's worked. So the idea that like, oh, she's a homebody and just stays home all the time because she'd rather like not be out there. She's almost like that she's shy. And I'm like, I don't feel like that's matches up with the other things that we actually know about her and have seen with her in the guide, in the books. So when that line came up, I was kind of like, really? Okay.
I always thought it was because like she wasn't as comfortable being around a bunch of humans. Like that's just always how I interpreted that, which I realize is like not how you're supposed to, but that's just always. And then in like the movies, they like didn't include her in a lot of like group, tons of cluster, like where is she at the party, like that sort of thing. Like I always was just like, oh, maybe she just like doesn't like being in crowds.
But then she's sitting at graduation.
Right.
It's not consistent.
Yeah. Or said she goes to some party at some student's parents' house.
You said, why isn't she at the party at her house? But yet, if she's uncomfortable around people, but she's at the graduation and she's at the wedding, and
right. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's what I thought was really bizarre thing.
And we don't see this like uncomfortable look like we see on Jasper's face.
She's not in pain.
The TikToks of like exclusively Jasper faces and words are just like, I'm obsessed. I can't, the way that people have dissected that character, it's just, I'm obsessed. Like, thank you.
Did you see the new or hear the new voicemail of Carlisle Cullen?
Yes.
No. Apparently Lori Jasper loves musical theater.
Where is this?
It's on Instagram. Like it's multiple segments, but yes, it is amazing. Jasper starts his own podcast. So
well, you're gonna have to show me when we're done with this. So in the chat, we've got a couple of interesting comments in the chat. It says, Lisa Gray says, do you think they pulled back on the love stories of the other Cullens to put more focus on the power of Edward and Bella's connection? I didn't feel any real chemistry with the other couples.
Definitely.
I mean, I felt chemistry with Carlisle and Esme, but maybe that's just because I like them so much as a couple that I kind of forced that on them. And maybe it's because I got to know Peter Facinelli so well because he went to so many conventions and hear him talk about some of the work that he did, that it just seemed like they had a little bit more chemistry than some of the other couples. I don't know. That's a good question for all. Do you guys think that? Do you think that could have been a thing?
I mean, I do.
I think. Go ahead.
The only time that I felt like I ever saw anything that was Emmett and Rosalie even is, and you have to be looking for it on top of it, is when Bella and Edward are going away for their honeymoon and you see them in the background, they're just making out. That's like the only time that you actually see some kind of semblance of a relationship between them. Whereas, you do get those little moments, I feel like, at least a little, and it could definitely be more. You do get those little tiny moments with Carlisle and Esme, and then Jasper and Alice, like, I don't even know what their relationship is. So you only get
she
to
drops
see, like,
out
that
the
one
tree
little
and they
weird
kiss.
touch in the car. And then like when she jumps on his back and it's just like this little peck on the lips and it's like, okay.
But it took us to the third movie to get that. Like,
yeah. Rosalie and Emmett do make out at the end of Breaking Dawn Part 2.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that too. But I mean, like, the first time that you get that semblance is Breaking Dawn 1, where they're making out in the background casually as Bella and Edward are driving away.
I do feel like if they, like, it definitely was in the movies a choice to keep it just Edward and Bella, to focus also on like the love triangle. So I think otherwise it would have been like Love Actually, where you'd be going through like a bunch of different couples' perspectives. And also because it's like technically through Bella, she doesn't really like pay attention to them or like see them often. And if Edward's around, she's like only has eyes for Edward. So it's really hard for her to be like, oh, are they making out? When she's like, oh my gosh, Edward, you're so pretty. Like, it's just like, I feel like, Lori, I love Edward.
it's like we meet Sam for like 2 seconds and he makes out with Emily and she's like, I had to divert my eyes because it's so real.
I'm like, girl, can you just watch so we can all get some of this? Like, what are you doing?
Train the eyes.
Go into that room in the Cullens house you've never been allowed into and check it out. See what's going on in there. Like, tell me what's up. I feel like that's, again, I'm gonna bring this up literally every time I do these chats, but like, that is why I want just like a live feed of the Cullen house, because I just want to see it from someone other than Bella. And it's also why I would love a Mike Newton fucking POV of something, because I feel like he would be like,
he was so got up in there.
You're making out. I'm gonna pay attention to that. Like, well, give me some tips.
He would be the one going through all the drawers and looking in the corners.
Yes.
No. You know, the one who's honestly watching all of it is Jessica or Anna Kendrick, because she's like, I don't know, Dr. Cullen, he's like some matchmaker, like, oh my gosh, they're like totally macking on each other. Look at that. Like, she put her hand on his, thing. Oh my God. He would be sitting there doing that.
That's all I want. Stephanie, please help me.
We totally got off topic. The topic is, what do you think of their superpowers? I mean, we say compassion, but let's dive into it a little bit more. How do you think that really, that superpower, because it's not like an actual thing that they do. And what do you think of Esme's? What would Esme's be in that? Just her heart? Let's like dive into it and make something not so like, oh, okay, whatever about it. So Kat, I have that you can go first. Yeah. Oh, you want me to come back to you? Okay. So then I will go to Mel.
So for Carlisle, I should have like just written down the whole quote because it kind of has to do with like that whole thing. Maybe I can find it. But it's just the whole thing of like, because what I had written down of like the whole, it's pleasant knowing that thanks to what I can do, some people's lives are better because I exist. He also points out like, I've been able to save people because of what I can smell in their blood. So like, that's a different sort of compassion where he's like, okay, like, I know that I can do this. I'm going to use it to my fullest advantage. And I'm going to continue doing this so that I can continue to save people instead of letting them die. Because what else do I have to do as a doctor in this small town of Forks? Or really anywhere, but like just knowing that he has that ability where he has put himself up to that standard of like, I know that I can help people. I know that this isn't going to affect me. And I know that I can use it to the fullest advantage where maybe another doctor's not going to catch whatever that is. I'm going to keep doing it. And I think that's one of his biggest things that I was just like, that's kind of just him being selfless, where he cares more about everybody else that surrounds him rather than his focus being on himself. And then for Esme, yes, it is compassion, but I just feel like she always has those little inklings for every single person that's surrounding her. Like, this is what I need to do for this person right now. Everybody else can hold off for a minute. This is what I need to do for this. And she's, I feel like she's very focused, where she's not just, scattered and everybody needs her attention all at once. She knows what people need when they need it.
Okay, Kat, do you got it?
Yeah. So, sorry, that was an emergency phone call from my mom. I agree with you, Mel. I think that Carlisle's very selfless, but I think that he has a deep need to help. Like, that's his thing. Like, he needs to help people because every step of the way he's trying to understand like where they're coming from, what their motive is, and just like always trying to help. Like, even in the situation where if he knew that, Edward didn't have anybody and Edward was just miserable, I would think that he would even sacrifice his own happiness to meet Edward's needs, And then that brings me to Esme. Esme needs to nurture. She needs to care. If Esme was in the room when Bella's back broke, she would have never hit the floor. That's just how I feel. Like, that's who she is. Everything can be going on in the room and she's looking, but she knows, okay, this person needs that over there, that person needs that over there. And she's just like focused on everybody else. And I think that's what makes them a great couple, because they are so selfless, and they're all about just their family and helping other people. And just like, even when they're facing, like, they don't know what's going on with her and Esme, they need to find out what's happening with her. They're still researching, but getting ready for the Volturi to come, So it sucks, because I know that they don't want that as their superpower, but it is what it is.
Amy?
So we talk about this quite a bit, Mel and I, on Twilight Tuesdays, about, oh, Edward is so good and Bella is so good. And I'm like, no, they're not. But Carlisle genuinely is. He's not perfect, but he really is just, when you think about how he cares about people and about how he's, after so many centuries alone, this life that he's created and how much he appreciates it and how much he doesn't take it for granted. And the idea that, again, we've met all these other vampires in these stories and the choices that they've made and the lives that they lead. And yet he could have from the very beginning been off slaughtering humans. But from the very beginning, he was like, I know what I've become and that's not what I want to be. And even when like he was going crazy with thirst, he ended up, going after those deer instead of after a human. And that was from 1660s, like on, that was always who he was. And the fact that like, when you look at all these vampires that have existed, the fact that he was like, I want to help humans, the food source to other people, and that he can cut open somebody and stick their hands in blood and be covered in it. And he's just like, whatever, I'm taking care of these people. You know, it's really, especially for being what he is, the idea of, I want to still make the world better. And to me, like, that is, you know, they might call it compassion, but to me, it's just, and he talks about Edward being innately good. I'm like, no, he is innately good. He is the goodest of them all. And for Esme, you know, I always feel like, again, I talked about a little bit earlier, but like that she's underestimated, that she is a strong person. She, you know, she wanted to go and like, she's like, yeah, all my friends are getting married. You know, I think I want to go teach out in like the wilderness out west. And like, wasn't scared, was like, this is what I want to do. I want to help people again, whatever. And then her dad's like, no, you got to get married. So then she marries this person who turns out to be awful, and she gets pregnant, and she's like, you know, I found I'm pregnant. I got to go. This guy, I'm not raising my kid here. And so you said like about, oh, it's, you know, to be an unmarried woman. She was like, I don't care. This is my priority. This is my strength. And so like she putting the, you know, we talk about selfless or putting other people first, but she also just like did what she needed to do and was really, you know, kind of brave and ahead of her time as a woman. I think about like when she was, you know, what, the year before she died was like the first year women could vote. Like what a different world she was in. And yet she was able, you know, to take these actions and take these steps. And while she was pregnant, she started teaching in 1921 or 1920, depending on the timeline. I mean, she's pretty an amazing person in that. And then she was like, okay, now Mary, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to get an education. I'm going to get degrees. I'm going to do all this stuff that I wanted to do. And I just, in my mind, you know, Carlisle was probably like, yes, do those things. I'm so proud of you. So yeah, to me, it's just always been like, I think she is such a stronger character. And that moment when she steps forward at the end of Breaking Dawn, I'm like, there's her showing her strength and what's important to her. And I said, so like the idea of like the housewife, I'm like, just to me doesn't mesh with all these other things that we know about her, that she's so much more than that. And she's not just mom in the background, but she's an accomplished person unto herself. So yeah, she might love passionately, but she's more than that. And Carlisle's lucky.
Heather.
I don't want to follow that. That was brilliant.
You want me to go?
No, I will add that up until I've always kind of like wondered like, oh, if I was a vampire, like what would my power be? Which I feel like it would be fire in some way because I'm always overheating, which is a side note. But I actually would only want Carlisle or Esme's abilities out of everybody that I've seen. And I feel like Edward's would drive me insane. Bella's would probably also drive me insane. I don't need strength. Like theirs just really feels like it's the most compatible with their lifestyle. They have the most healthy relationship out of literally everybody in the Twilight universe, which great. They are not perfect, but they're about as close as you're going to get. And they always are trying to be better and trying to make everybody be better and trying to help everybody. And so I feel like that is definitely what I would aspire to be if I could have their abilities, one or the other.
They lead by example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I've had all kinds of thoughts. I wish I should have probably got a pen and written down my thoughts as each one of you were talking. I think overall, for me, Carlisle and Esme bring a sense of normalcy. It's like, this is normal. Everyone else around us is wackadoo. Like, I don't know what this is. And saying that it's normal for a vampire to not drink blood. No, it's that I get the sense that between Carlisle and Esme, they are trying to live as normal a life in the world and with each other as much as they can. Mm-hmm. Whereas, and trying to take care of everyone else to make sure that their lives are as normal as they can be. But yet everybody's doing all these weird things that you're like, oh, can you please just calm down? And you don't hear a lot of the complaints, and you don't hear making a lot of the fusses that you get from some of the other characters. It's like they do what needs to be done because that's what's going to keep things normal and keep it going, which is a parent. You know, when you have kids and they're whining and complaining, you're like, look, I get it. It's a thing but you got to do what you got to do and you got to get it done. So let's do it. Okay. I don't like doing it either, but I do it because it's got to get done. And so I think it really truly sets them apart as the parents of the group because they can do that. Whereas everyone else is like, I mean, and Rosalie, I'm sorry, Mel, but Rosalie, come on, please, Rosalie. But then I had a couple of other thoughts along the way as you guys were each talking. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to catch up with all of them, but Amy, what it hit me, and surely I had to have realized this, but they all cheered on Bella for avoiding the human blood and going after, the mountain lion that, that's not even how a newborn should behave. But yet Bella knew she had been turned into a vampire and she had Edward there to watch over her. Carlisle didn't have either of those things. He woke up and was like, and yet he resisted. He resisted on his own. And so, we make such a big fuss about Bella being able to avoid the human blood. It really, truly, it's even more impressive that Carlisle did it. Because Bella had the buildup and the knowledge and even, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Carlisle didn't even know that was coming at him. And yet he still did it. And so I don't know why that just popped into my head. That was like, we always make this fuss about Bella, but really it was Carlisle that should get more of the praise for not killing somebody.
And he didn't know that he could survive off of animal blood.
No.
The Cullens all knew that after him, but he had to discover that on his own.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I'm looking in the chat. Anything what I've always loved about Carlisle and Esme is that they have so much strength, power, but they're so gentle. Yes, I like that too.
Don't
All
have
right.
to show it. They're just it.
I know I had a thought about every little thing that, like, each one of you made a comment and I thought, oh, I want to add to that. And now I can't remember what they are. Okay. Which of the Cullens, other than Esme, do you think Carlisle has the best or the closest relationship with, and why? So, like, other than Esme, obviously he has the closest relationship with her. But of the others, who do you think he has the closest relationship with and why? We're going to start with Heather.
I feel like I immediately want to say Edward. I actually have an interesting answer for the Esme question. But for Carlisle, I really just feel like it's Edward because they had that initial bond. And that was like the first, like, everybody knows. I just feel like it's Edward, but I wanted to not say Edward because I didn't realize I was going first and I figured that other people would say Edward. And I'm trying to be unique here. So I feel like he would also be
Other answer other than Edward.
Say that again?
Okay.
Oh.
So yeah, keep going then.
Okay. So my second answer was going to be either underlyingly that he's very close with Jasper or Emmett. And I say that because it really feels like he would feel like they needed that and that they needed that support. Whereas Rosalie clearly is like, I got it. I'm good. and I feel like he's really close with Alice. Like, I definitely don't want to take away from that, but Alice and Edward are really close. And so I just kind of think that Carlisle definitely has become like this like stable presence in Emmett and Jasper's life. And like, they would definitely have like this side bond, kind of their own little Cullen boy bromance going on in the background, that I feel like is definitely not talked about, but would be very relevant if we were to expand on that kind of part of the universe.
Okay, so then I assume that Mel and Amy are going to say Edward as well. Why are you saying Edward? Kind of Edward? So I'll go to Amy.
Yeah.
Why are you saying Edward?
Because it's in the books. I mean, it's in there pretty much, like, how close their relationship is. And I think at one point there is, maybe it's in an interview with Stephanie or something, but I know I came upon, yeah, I think it's in the correspondence where she's like, yeah, Edward, they don't want to choose favorites, but really like Edward was the first one and he's they have a special bond with him. So Stephanie said it. I can give you like a second one for Esme, but like, I just kind of feel like no matter what with Carlisle, like Carlisle's best man at Edward's wedding, like, yeah. And he was probably the only witness at Esme and Carlisle's wedding. So
the fact that I think it's a combination of the fact that he chose, that was the first person that he bit and tasted blood, right? Because he would have had to have tasted Edward's blood to kill him, and change him, and the one that he's been with the longest. So that in and of itself, but
he got him a Christmas tree.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think there is just a uniquely special bond with your firstborn, above and beyond that he killed him and he's been, there's just a special bond between, especially dads and their firstborn. So now Mel went like this. Why do you say Edward or whoever else you say? Why do you say that?
So, I mean, Edward is just the very obvious thing from like everything that's in the books and everything that we're given on page. And that's kind of the thing is like, I feel like so many of us have either read so much fan fiction or have read like other things or have our own interpretations of things where like, there's also this part of me, especially with like how we've kind of evolved as humanity, that feels like he would be close to Jasper to try and understand him. Because he would be trying to figure out where all of that came from and how he can help it and not hinder it and not make it worse or not make it so very obvious of like, Jasper, you're an idiot. Just stop being an idiot. Where he has that sense to him where he's just like, I just need to know, like, he is now also my son. I need to know how I can help him without hindering him. So I'm gonna figure him out.
All right, Kat. Wait, I think you're muted.
That makes sense. There's something about Carlisle. He's very charismatic. He gives you his full attention. He makes sure that, like when you're talking to him, there's this look in his eyes that he's really listening to me. He's soaking in what I'm saying. The little touches that he gives. When the moment for me, when he's stitching up Bella and they're having this great conversation, he's being very honest with her. The little chin tap that he gives her is like, and I feel like he does that with everyone to the point where people will fight you because, no, I'm closest with Carlisle. No, I'm closest with Carlisle. So everybody gets that impression that they're getting more of his time, that they're close to him, that he understands them and they understand him on a deep level. And so from other people's perspective, I feel like everybody feels like they're super close to Carlisle. And then from Carlisle's perspective, I feel that he's genuinely so good that he's not going to have a favorite. Because just as special as Edward is, because that's his first child, Rosalie, and that's his first daughter, and so he has a special relationship with her. And then at the same time, he hates himself because she didn't want this lifestyle. He knows she did. So it's like there's compelling arguments for him to be close to everybody. And I feel like even Jessica would be like, no, Dr. Carlisle is my favorite doctor. I'm his favorite patient, Mm-hmm. I think that's how it is with Carlisle. It's just, that's who he is. He's that charismatic and that genuine that everybody's going to be like, no, he's my BFF. And they would fight each other for him.
If I'm fighting all of them for him. But
if the doctor looked like that, he would be my favorite doctor too.
Exactly.
So Mel, are you reading the chat? They are talking about Carlisle and Rosalie's relationship in the chat. That Carlisle attempts to understand her more than the others.
I don't necessarily think that one's true.
Oh, you don't?
I I feel like I'll go the opposite end. I actually feel like Esme would be very close with Rosalie because she would be the one trying to understand her and trying, because they have that small bit of, background that is the same. So I feel like Carlisle would kind of leave that up to Esme in a sense. Because I feel like there's maybe a small part of him that has given up on like trying to fully understand her, because he does realize that she's still, even if she's going to say, I'm not mad anymore about it, she's still upset that this is the life that she was given.
I've often thought that too, that he, for all of his compassion, how guilty does he feel thinking that, okay, I'm going to give her the same gift that I've given Edward and Esme, and those have worked out okay, but it didn't work out. I mean, technically kind of it worked out with Rosalie, but she's still not perfectly happy. I don't think anything would ever make her perfectly happy, though.
No, I mean, even in Midnight Sun, and there was a, to me, awful moment where like Edward and Emmett are together and they're like, yeah, she would give up anything, including Emmett, to be human again. And I was just like, oh, my heart, poor Emmett. And Emmett knows that.
All right, so which of the Cullens do you think Esme has the closest relationship with, and why? This one we start with Mel.
I mean, I basically already gave my answer. I feel like she would be closest with Rosalie. There's so many people that are just like, oh, she wouldn't really be that close with anybody. I just feel like she would be, just based off of their backgrounds. And Esme wanting to essentially figure out Rosalie and like what exactly is it that's going to make her happy, or not even what's going to make her happy, what is going to make her feel like she fits in with this family and that we want her here, not like her, Rosalie and Edward's relationship where they kind of hate each other all the time. I feel like she just wants her to have Rosalie understand, you are part of this family and it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be upset, but like, you're still part of this family. So like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to pull that out of you, to make you understand that you are part of this family and that we do love you no matter what happens.
Kat?
I'm going to say Bella. Because for multiple reasons, they both met their love of their life when they were human, and it carried over into an eternity with them. They have the experience of being pregnant. They have, I think the fact that Bella not only accepted the Cullens, but chose to be part of their family also is something that draws Esme to her. The fact that she made her a grandmother, but also the fact that she's the reason that Jacob is now part of the family. And she knows that ultimately Renesmee is going to be taken care of, protected, and loved, just as she's loved by Carlisle, the same way Bella is loved by Edward. And I don't think Esme makes a whole lot of effort to hide the fact that she really loves Edward. She loves all her kids, but Edward's got that little edge. And so the fact that he's found her and he's happy. I mean, we see it when they're meeting each other for the first time, how nervous she is and, how happy she is that Edward has his mate. So I think that, she's like Carlisle. She's very charismatic. She's very loving. But I think that with Esme, it's a little bit easier for her to say, yeah, this might be my favorite.
Heather?
Which is why I was like furiously shaking my head when Mel was talking. I was going to say Rosalie, but actually for different reasons. And my reasons are probably wrong because I don't know Rosalie as well as Mel does. But from kind of my perspective on Rosalie and Esme, I thought of it as like misery loves company, in that Esme also can't have children and has kind of found this like different way to have a family. And she was also didn't have a choice and got it taken from her. And it's the only other female that she can really relate to, because of multiple things. And so she would find kind of a solitude and like a person to really confide in Esme, where she's definitely not going to find that in Bella, even though she's trying to take Renesmee, and like that's a whole different thing. It really feels like they're a little bit more connected, even without like the pre-vampireness. They just have more in common. And it feels to me like, almost based off what Amy said, Rosalie would be more sad to leave Esme than Emmett. Because it's like she, in her head, Emmett's just like, we have sexy times together. Like, you're a boy, it's fine, you're pretty to look at. But like Esme is someone that she would like really have in her heart and would know her on a different level than anybody else in that house, or anybody ever really. So yeah, that's kind of where I would kind of target Esme and Rosalie.
Amy?
What's interesting is that as I was just thinking of like the few interactions that you see of Esme and Rosalie interacting in the films. Rosalie or Esme is kind of scolding her. Like she's like, Rose, and she's like, clean this up. Like, I'm like, and yeah, we don't necessarily get to see that togetherness when there probably naturally would be. It's interesting because I get asked, so I was going to say this in the beginning, but I kind of, it slipped my mind. So I've been running a Tumblr for years called Ask Esme Cullen, and it's still active. I was just answering questions again. And so I often have gotten asked questions over the years about her relationships with the kids and stuff. And so I've thought a lot about the Midnight Sun also kind of shifted things a little bit for me. So in the past, I would have always thought, Edward, of course, first, he's the golden child, he's perfect. But then it, to me would have been Rosalie, because they do have both of the things that, Mel and Heather said of the things that they have in common. Like, I think about like what it must have been like for Rosalie, waking up in this situation. She's angry at Carlisle for changing her. She's, heard Edward being like, how dare you like bring her in to this house? And so there's this one woman there that she can relate to on many different levels. And I think of like, here's somebody who was raped and murdered, but yet she has this beautiful, wonderful, like sexual relationship with Emmett. And I have to think that in some ways, Esme kind of helped her get there too, as a woman who had been through awful experiences, and how said like, look, like, you can have a wonderful relationship. You can have a beautiful relationship. It doesn't have to be like that. You can trust somebody. Like, I always, again, this is Amy headcanon, but that's part of that relationship. But I have to say, like, as we've been rereading the books and things that we saw in Midnight Sun, we really see Alice and Esme drawn to each other a lot. And I don't think it's something I necessarily I caught before until we've been doing these rereads. And you see it in Midnight Sun too, that like Esme will sit on the couch and Alice sits at her feet, or like they're always kind of like, we talk about the magnets of Carlisle and Esme, but in the books there's a lot of Esme and Alice. And even the whole scene, which I have the picture of like Alice and Edward and Esme at the piano together, like this one with the three of them drawn together. So I feel like she has, and maybe she just has very different relationships, because at the same time, again, kind of based on Midnight Sun, I don't necessarily think Alice and Rosalie are as close as we may have thought previously. But I think that Esme has very different relationships with the two of them as her daughters. Whereas like also the fact that like Alice doesn't remember her family or her parents. So Esme is her mom. So yeah, I kind of feel, so my thoughts on it have changed a bit, but she loves them all equally because she's just a perfect mom. But but Edward first.
The way that I picture it is that Alice prefers Esme. Alice is drawn to Esme, and Esme's not going to be like, "Ew, get away from me," But and Esme welcomes that. But the Alice Esme thing, I always picture it more as like Alice is drawn to Esme. I don't know why, but
you see both in the books. There are moments where like specifically it's pointed out like Alice went and sat by Esme, or Esme went and sat by Alice.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I will say that in regards to Amy, you saying that she scolds Rosalie, I felt like that was kind of part of their bond. Like she knows that Rosalie needs like the hard, tough love. She's not going to respond well to like, hey, could you clean that up, please? Like Alice would want it to be like, oh my gosh, you dropped something. Could you clean that up? But Rosalie's like, clean that the hell up, clean it. Like that's kind of how I interpreted that relationship.
So I can see all of the arguments that you guys have said. I don't know. My instinct was that she had the closest that she would eventually have the closest relationship with Bella. She hasn't spent as much time with Bella, but I foresee them having the closest relationship because of what was discussed, that they both fell in love with a vampire when they were a teenager. That vampire didn't think they were worthy of love. They kind of had to convince, yeah, I do love you. They both had the experience of being pregnant as humans and having a baby. So I can see that. This isn't a question, this is a point, and maybe you want to talk about this. Where my mind starts going is paying attention to who actually refers to them as mom and dad, as opposed to Carlisle and Esme. I mean, yes, Edward will call him Carlisle, but even in their private moments, Edward refers to them as mom and dad. Does Jasper or Emmett or Rosalie ever refer to them as mom and dad? Or are they just Carlisle and Esme?
I feel like there was more of it in Midnight Sun, and I'd have to like go back and look, but I felt like there was more references to them being mom and dad or mother and father or whatever in there than I'd seen anywhere else.
But doesn't that always come from Edward?
I don't know. I feel like somebody that he was not the only one. Sorry, like everything closed on me.
I'm clearly Edward thinks of them as mom and dad. And yes, as a group, like if they go out to Walmart or Newton's, I should say, they like go to Walmart, if they go to Newton's, and they refer to each other, like if Rosalie has to refer to Carlisle, I bet you she remembers to call him dad out in public or something, because they are technically adopted. But for the most part, don't they just refer to them as Carlisle and Esme? And how different might it be for them to think of them as their parents? I feel like Emmett sometimes calls Carlisle Pops in jest. Edward calls Esme mom after Volterra. Yeah, well, he calls her mom when they're sitting at the piano. He says, "You're making me blush." But I can't really think of another instance where another Cullen flat out refers to them as mom and dad in private, when it would be perfectly normal for them to just say Carlisle and Esme. You know, the fact that like Edward refers to them as mom and dad in his private time when he doesn't have to. I'm gonna have to look.
Yeah, I'm like, the problem is I keep trying to search the word mom is I get moment. Do you know how many moments there are in Breaking Dawn or in Midnight Sun? So what was the last night? I was looking for Esme. What was the word? Mesmerizing. Mesmerizing has Esme in it. So, and that's in there multiple times.
Stephanie likes to use the same words over and over. All right. In the end, let's see. What is the biggest question you have or missing moment you wish you could see regarding Carlisle and Esme? I'll start with Amy again. Just, like, maybe we should fill in the blanks. Like maybe we should start with us and let Amy fill in all of the blanks that we missed. What do we think?
Okay, sure.
What do we think? Okay, so like look at your list, and as we name them, like take them off your list, Amy. We'll start with Kat.
I would like to see the first moment where Carlisle and Esme actually looked at each other and were willing to take that step forward in their relationship. How that came about, what it looked like, what was said. I want that tender moment, or maybe not so tender moment. You don't know, because
Oh,
maybe she threw him against the wall.
do it.
Exactly.
He was a newborn.
Okay,
Yeah.
Heather.
I was gonna say leg hitch, but yeah, just like generally that. I would also really have loved to have seen just like I always feel like a broken record with this. Normal, everyday life things. What's Carlisle doing when he's not at the hospital? Is he mowing the lawn? Is Esme going to the grocery store? Like, what are we doing? I want to see that. I want to see these like everyday interactions and like the just like completely boredom, whatever. I'm not choosing the right words right now, but basically I just want to see everyday life for them. And I want to see that include boring chores and pushing people up against the wall to give them hot kisses. That both. I want all the things.
I want the bedroom.
I only want bed.
Mel, do you have a missing moment or a big question?
I just think we get so little of Esme in an overall sense. Even with the guide, I wish they would have, Stephanie, give me a story. I don't even care what time frame it's from. Put them in, the 1950s, put them in the 60s, but whatever. I don't care when it is. Just give me a story that's about just them and focus more of it on Esme, because I want to know like who she really is and not just these little teeny tiny moments that we get here and there.
So I have a list of scenes. It's the one that Carlisle and Esme are the one that I'm the most curious about. I want to see him change Esme and her wake up and be, I want that moment like that Kat was talking about. I want to see Carlisle change Edward and that process of I'm not talking, but you're responding. Reading my thoughts. Oh my gosh, stop calling me. So I want to see that. And how do I turn it off from my computer that if they call me back again that it won't pop up on my computer? I want to see them when Edward leaves and they're alone for the first time, because that's really the first time that they're alone. They're worried about Edward being gone, but it's just the two of them by themselves and being empty nesters. It's the only time that the two of them have just lived by themselves. And I want to see that. I want to see Carlisle in Volterra. I want that dead body bleeding all over his desk, dang it.
You just want more arrow scenes.
So that's my list. Amy.
It's funny. I was thinking today, I don't know if it's because I've been thinking about miniseries, because there's been so much discussion about miniseries because of like Bridgerton. But I was like, wow, if we could actually include like all of this and incorporate Midnight Sun, we could actually just like let's just start with like the first moment of the Twilight Saga miniseries being like Carlisle as a human. And let's go through all of that history before we even like, it's like the prequel, but like all the stuff we got to know, let's fill all of that in. And then eventually in like part 8, we get to Twilight, we get to Bella, we get to Forks, or featuring or focusing on specific characters. I don't know, but I'm just like, there's so much. I would love to visually see so much of this.
No, it would have to be like season 5 is when we finally get Bella.
That's fine. I'm good with that. We can go for like 12 seasons. It's all good.
We start with
But-
Carlisle as a human. We turn him into a vampire. We got to see that. We've got to see him figure out what's going on. How does he relate to his father? There's got to be a moment where he and his father, deal. We got to see him in Italy. We've got to see him traveling the world. Didn't he swim?
He swam the English Channel to the continent or to the
That.
Why not?
That's a freaking episode right there.
Really, he's just swimming.
We've got to see him in medical
Go to
school.
America.
Because do we honestly think he went to medical school and the first time somebody sliced open a person with blood that he just went, let me stitch that up? Do we honestly think it was, or wasn't there like a,
Excuse me. I need to step away.
I want to see his medical school. They're like,
I want him study music.
That's Carlisle. And here's the thing. The season finale is he walks in and he picks up a chart that says Edward Cullen.
Don't do this
Edward
to me.
No, Wednesday Cullen.
He picks up, it's in the middle of the pandemic, and he picks up the chart that says Edward Mason, and the camera pans down and you see Edward, and that's the season finale.
I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to sleep tonight.
Why is this not a thing?
There
And
needs
then
to
the
storyboard
next
it all
season
the way
opens
through.
actually with Jasper.
Then we could do, they could go in and do a whole series of just Jasper and Alice, and season 3 comes back with Edward and Carlisle. We don't
And he has to meet Esme in the first season.
until season 5. Bella doesn't come in until at least season 5.
And he meets Esme in the first season, though.
Yes, he would meet
Yeah.
Edward in the first season.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm picturing this like Clone Wars, like an animated series, just so we can have like 100,000 seasons.
Well, when she said Jasper and Alice, and I'm thinking like WandaVision, but it's like Alice Vision. So.
Oh my gosh. I see, and I'm picturing like Jasper and Maria as like a Walking Dead-esque like sort of show, like almost like
so
American
many
Horror
things.
Story, where like every season is a different theme.
Or they have like 3 episodes of Carlisle and then an episode of Jasper, and then a couple episodes, and like filling in, like every now and then we cut away from what's happening in England and we come to the Civil War or something like that.
So good.
Come on, son.
Well, what I actually had, the first thing I put to the answer to this question is everything, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Everything everybody has said, absolutely. Some specific things I had, or just things we don't know. Like, when was we know she was changed in 1921? When was she changed? What time of the year was she changed? Did they really get married the same year that she was turned while she was still a newborn? Because like, that's where I'm like, how would you have gone in front of a priest if she's still got red eyes?
Amy, the campaign that I put forward to anyone that would listen to try to get Stephanie to tell us when their wedding date was. I was like, come on, Amy is having a really hard year. This would be an amazing gift to give her for her birthday. Please, I want to like wrap it up in a bow and say, there you go. We got their wedding date.
Yeah, because I mean, I will say I'm struggling with this right now. Like, as much as I'm like 100 years of Carlisle and Esme, which is true in the fact that like that's when she was changed. In my mind, there was no way they got married the same year. That they were able to physically go be in front of a human being with her as a newborn, because he wanted to get married in a church. Like,
It was
Yes, you
Garrett.
can
Garrett
have
got ordained and he married them.
yeah, no, I
I'm
don't.
into it.
Oh.
Lauro married them.
No. So that one, where do they live? All these different places. Like, again, that whole, like, can we fill in the blank between 1921 and like 2005? Like, where did they go? Where did they live? Where did she go to school? How did she learn to restore homes? Like, that's not something I think she would have picked up when she was like, oh, I want to be a teacher. Like,
Okay.
where did she get those skills from?
Bob Vila. She doesn't sleep. She just watched Bob Vila all day.
Yeah, but that would be like the 80s. Like, I think she was restoring homes before that.
Chip and Joanna Gaines.
I want the timelines. I want to know how she initially reacted to Rosalie when her and Edward came home, and there's this bloody beautiful girl sitting there, like, that her husband brought home. Like, the most beautiful girl in the world is lying in her bed, bleeding, and changing into a vampire.
And then her husband bit her multiple times, put his mouth.
Yes. And he's sitting there going, she's so, it was too much waste. Like, I had to do this. Why her as his wife? I'm sitting there going, like, yes, maybe the compassion, but what else is going through my head?
Mm-hmm.
So that one, I've written my version of it, but I mean, and just again, like, how did she interact and build all these relationships with the family members, working outside the home, like all these things. And again, all of like Carlisle's history and all these places he went and what all that. And of course, the ultimate question, the question I've never asked, the question that was first on my list. Why was Carlisle's car still in Washington and Newman when they moved to Ithaca?
I would like to know too, or have this where he gifted her Isle Esme. And like how that all went down and how they interacted on the island and
He wanted to see her sparkle in the sun.
I mean, I asked Stephanie the question and her answer, because I was like, why did that happen? Like, why did he give her that gift? And she's like, oh, I thought it would be obvious. And I was like, obvious to me was they needed a place to get away from their kids and have sex. But she was like, no, because he thinks that she's beautiful and he wants to see her sparkle in the sun. And I was like, that is beautiful. And I hope they're having lots of naked, sparkly sex on the beach at Isle Esme. And that's what's really going down.
Her sparkling in the sun. The only one we really see is Edward and a little bit of Bella. But like, show me that. Like, again, it's another opportunity to like do a quick little flashback. Oh, he gave, Esme this island, and then quick to them just looking at each other, no kids around, private island, sun. They're both beaming and beautiful.
Isle Esme. It is her island, and I hate that all of us just think of it as Edward and Bella's fucking honeymoon.
Yeah. It was borrowed to them for a little bit of time.
And then they destroy things.
I mean, I'm sure those things have been replaced multiple times if Carlisle and Esme were having some sexy times there too.
Well, there was an interview with Peter and Elizabeth when Breaking Dawn Part 1 was coming out, and Peter was like, yeah, he's like, I'm not happy about them breaking that bed. It was an antique. And she's like, it's okay, we'll get another one.
I
love those two.
I was just thinking about that. How Esme would have to be very particular about, which antiques is she going to worry about? Because when they do get to having sex, what's going to get broken?
Yeah. And that would be for all of the Cullen couples.
I think that was all of my questions that we had. Is there anything else, Amy, that you wanted to talk about Carlisle and Esme that we didn't, or anyone in the chat that you want us to talk about that we haven't talked about?
I mean, for me, one of the things I was thinking about that wasn't a question here was, things that were in the book that didn't make it into the movie that you would have liked to have seen.
Oh, there's a lot.
Well, of them specifically, like for me, like I know, I mentioned the dancing at the wedding reception, or said Esme, or at the end of New Moon when Carlisle and Esme are standing back at the airport waiting for them to arrive, and Esme scolding Edward. Like those to me were moments that really, when I read the book, I was like, I can't wait to see this on screen, and then they weren't there.
Well, I just feel like, so much of it was happening in their house, especially Breaking Dawn. And Bella mentions in passing, like what they were doing, the way that they would make the drinks with the blood. Like in the film, they just hand her blood to drink. Yeah. And oh my gosh. This is my father. I'm going to mute myself. You guys talk, okay?
I
Heather?
agree with anything Amy says. No, everything you've pointed out is like seriously, like honestly, the Edward and Esme dancing was something that I really thought we were gonna get. I really did. And it was kind of shocking to not get that. Like another reason we could just cut Jacob out of the whole series. Just leave more time for Esme. But yeah.
What did I ask you all before we started Zooming? Our chat people will not know. What did I ask you all to pray for?
No school tomorrow.
Yay!
It snowed in Tennessee and we don't have school tomorrow.
Amazing.
And there's 2 Cullens in Nashville right now, so.
Okay.
Well, I think the one already left.
Okay, so what did you just say? What did you say?
I
Before?
said I agree with everything that Amy says, and that I think that the dancing scene between Edward and Esme could have been put in, and we could have it's another reason to remove Jacob from the whole series.
Yeah, there's a lot of things in the movie that you're like, why did we spend that much time doing that instead of having what we needed to have? But I felt that way about Star Wars too. I'm like, why am I watching him, climb up a thing and milk its teat? Why am I doing that? Why do I not see Jedis with lightsabers?
Or Carlisle's backstory. That's another one.
Why did I not get Carlisle's backstory? Why do I have,
Better hold on tight, spider monkey.
Yeah.
I mean,
Spider monkeys and Monkey Man. But although Monkey Man at least refers to somebody who doesn't have enough screen time anyway. But we have spider monkeys and we have, you can Google it.
Too, I think I would have liked to have seen Carlisle's first interaction with Renesmee, and like as a doctor, how he's like checking her, APGAR scores, all that. But then also how he's interacting with her, like, okay, now that I've gotten the doctor part over, can I be in awe as a grandpa?
Yeah.
And how Esme would have reacted, and she looks like Edward in this regard, and she has Bella's this, just that moment I think would have been sweet as well.
Yeah, because we kind of get that with Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
We get with Charlie getting to give them as
like after all the work Carlisle just put in, and Esme, and running from these wolves, like, hello. I think we deserve that.
Yes, some grandparent moments.
No, but we had to watch Jacob strip for Charlie, so that was more important.
I mean, it was, important. That's not a scene I'm willing to cut to, make room for anything else.
Okay, so wait, let's see. Do we have any other? They want us to write a screenplay. They want
casual. We'll do that.
Yes.
Done. It'll be done next week. Thank you.
And then we'll all act it out over the next year.
Via Zoom.
I'm into it.
I'm here for it.
I think Amy wants to be Esme, but who's going to be Carlisle?
I think you should be
Oh,
Carlisle.
I have the costumes. The Esme stuff I can't fit in, but I have them too.
You be both, or you're going to be Kristen at the movie awards kissing yourself.
You need to write the screenplay and give it to the Olympic Coven and tell them to act it out.
There you go. There you go. No, I'm kind of wondering, from Midnight Sun, since we are Midnight Sun Thursday, was there anything that made you go, think differently about Carlisle and Esme, or feel differently about them? Because I'm committed no matter what.
No, they were my favorite. They were my favorite couple from the beginning. Of all the Cullens, they were my favorite couple. I never really understood Jasper, even when we got into Eclipse. I didn't really understand Jasper. Emmett's not my type. That big burly hunka thing, it's just not my type. Which is why, and just Kellen Lutz isn't even my type, which is why I was so profoundly taken aback by the fact that like he made me stupid. Like I was like, he's not my type.
Ma'am.
Whereas when I sat across, when I read about Carlisle, when I saw him in the movie, when I sat across from Peter for the first time, and I was like, this is, that's totally my type. Right there.
That it was my type from the moment he walked in and he was hot and blonde. And it's like, wow, who is this guy?
And
The most
FYI,
interesting man in the world.
I've started our screenplay. Actually, Bella doesn't come in until season 8.
Oh, great.
Perfect.
Awesome. We don't have to worry about casting for a while either.
Even better. Anybody else? Did Midnight Sun change anything for you about Carlisle or Esme?
They're just great.
I think it speaks to how perfectly clear she saw their characters too, and the way that I think Stephanie feels about their characters, that they are so well defined and so obviously a right couple. And maybe that's why she doesn't write about them so much, because as a storyteller, what makes a good story is conflict and contention. And there isn't a lot of conflict and contention where Esme and Carlisle are concerned, because they're kind of like the peacemakers, and and so the Rosalie, that's why Rosalie gets so much screen time, and Jasper, because they cause a lot of conflict.
That's why I've said multiple times, you can't just have every single person in the family be so like, la-di-da, everything is hunky-dory.
But there were moments of conflict that were mentioned, but we didn't see. Like, it's not like there was some conflict, I thought, in New Moon with them leaving. And then there's conflict with the Bella pregnancy situation between the two of them. And, but we don't see any of that. I mean, there's like potential for moments, but she didn't write them.
Right. So because Carlisle sides with Edward,
At first, yes.
And Esme sides with Bella, that they should keep it. Yeah, that would be an interesting bedroom conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So where's your compassion now, Carlisle?
Yeah. Or even even in Midnight Sun, when, they all sit down in the dining room, and like, it's kind of like, Esme goes, she'll do what she has to do for him. Whereas like Carlisle is more of like, yeah, I'm not going to kill her. But the kind of what's going through Edward's head is that he'll do whatever needs to be done to protect him.
Yeah.
So
I do feel like the reason that we don't get more of them is because of the like POV that we go through. Like, you go through Edward already knows everything about them. He's not going to like repeat things or like tell Bella, because he doesn't feel like she needs to know. He's kind of not trying to glorify the relationship anyway, because he doesn't want her to be a vampire, blah, blah, blah. And then Bella only really perceives the family through Edward until she's a vampire. So there's like way too much time where she's just like, tell me everything you can about them. And like, she doesn't like go up and ask them. It like kind of eliminates any like barriers there, or puts up barriers that could have been eliminated by her just being slightly more outgoing or like slightly more curious about stuff.
Mel and I talk about the summer between Twilight and New Moon. What went down that summer? I would think she was hanging out with the Cullens all the time. At some point, could like her and Esme have had a conversation, because Esme wanted to talk to her and wants to have a relationship with her. And she could have been like, Bella, let me tell you about mine and Carlisle's story. Like, I would think that she would want her to know that, just from like wanting her to know her better, but also the experience that she had. She knows what it's like being a human, seeing this amazing person that they don't know exactly what it is, but they are just the ultimate from the beginning.
Kat, add it to the screenplay, season 8, maybe 9.
Mm-hmm.
It might be season 10. I don't know.
Also, how do you guys think that whole conversation went? Like, if we did have that bedroom scene where, Carlisle and Esme are talking about the whole, Bella's pregnant situation, I honestly don't feel, this is what we call it in my house, they would have heated fellowship, intense fellowship. I don't think that would happen. I think they would, Esme would be like, yes, I understand where you're coming from. And I really get that point, but you have to understand where I don't think it'd be contentious at all. I don't think they would be yelling, I think they would be so busy trying to hear each other out, but then give their perspective, that it would just be very calm and cordial.
Well, I mean, part of me thinks too that the conflict was happening while Bella and Edward were traveling home, and that they didn't actually know what Bella's feelings were on any of this. All you heard was like, Carla, Edward thinks it like needs to come out or whatever, and Esme being like, hold on. What we've got to do what Bella wants to do. And I think I could see that being more of the conflict even than like once Bella got back there and said, and Rosalie was like, yo, I'm taking care of her. And he realized what Bella, the patient, wanted. I don't think that Carlisle at that point was like, yeah, I'm going to rip this baby out of her.
No,
I can't see him doing that.
I expect that they probably had a conversation of, I understand that that's what Bella wants, but what should happen is we should get rid of, she should terminate the pregnancy. The only way to guarantee that she will survive this is to terminate the pregnancy. I'm not going to do it, and then like maybe like a stern look from Esme, and he says, no, I'm not going to do it. And I'm not going to pressure her about it. But as a doctor and as someone who cares about her, she should terminate the pregnancy. And then like maybe Esme turns around and says, well, as a mother, she should have her baby.
Especially if that's what she wants.
It's my fan fiction.
Oh, I know. I've thought through that one many times. So, but yeah, I think that but again, there was potential to show that kind of like, how does that dynamic work between them? And we never did.
I'd like to see them fight. What do you suppose they've ever fought about? Carlisle.
Finding Rose on that bed when she got home. Who this? Why is she on my bed? Why is she leaving? Why did she get your attention? Tell me. Please explain.
Okay, here's a question for you. Who do you think bought their first bed? Carlisle or Esme?
Esme.
That was quick.
I mean, I've written it. So I have a fan fiction called the Esme Chronicles, which is all of this from Esme's perspective. It starts with her human life and then goes into vampire life. And as far as I've gotten, the next chapter, if I ever get it finished and published, is when Emmett comes into the scene. So I have through Rosalie showing up and all of that conflict is, okay. I've written my version, my interpretation of it.
Can I say something?
Yes. Yeah.
It's not PG. I want to know when they decided to buy a bed, because I don't think they needed a bed and they didn't use a bed for quite a while.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They obviously Edward and Carlisle wouldn't keep beds in their house. What would be the point of it? They'd have like comfy chairs, but they don't really need beds. And so then they change Esme and they don't really have a bed for her and she doesn't need a bed. But when they fall in love and
she's like, he's like, we're getting married. And she's like, we need a bed.
Who bought the bed? So you honestly think they were like, we're married, we need a bed?
I think it was Carlisle proposed and they're like, okay, we're getting married. And Esme was like, well, we need a bed.
So Kat, though, I think is suggesting that their first time was not horizontal.
I'd like to believe that when Carlisle finally was looking at her with those eyes, that it was just a passionate heat of the moment. Where we're at is where it's happening.
But he's a 300-year-old plus virgin. So as far as we know.
Exactly.
Right.
300 years is a long time.
And he's all like, we need to be married. Like, he's all about that commitment and godly. So I see them missionary on the bed a first time.
he's the virgin and she's the experienced one.
Yeah.
And
But
I'm
she's
saying
not a great
everybody is
experience.
shenanigans can happen without completing the deal. There was stuff that led up to the wedding day. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Oh, in my story, they come close and it's not in a bed, but he wants
so
to
when are we
wait.
getting the story?
It exists. It's on fanfiction.net. It's been there. The link is in my bio on my Instagram.
Wait, Jesse says Esme would get a bed to make the house feel homey. Yeah,
Gotcha.
right. That's why she got a bed.
They didn't break a bed though until post honeymoon.
I like this. Montserrat says maybe Esme wanted a bed but was afraid to ask for it, and so Edward just went ahead and bought one because he could read her mind. Let's see. You guys want to have sex with each other? Here's a bed.
Poor Edward.
Poor Edward. Okay. Well, if that is, we have gone down the rabbit hole of somebody said, "Oh my God, oh my God, this is everything."
I like to think they had unexpected, passionate sex too. Well, they do. Eventually.
Everybody's gonna leave this and go read.
Hashtag. I'm using the hashtag 100 years of Carlisle and Esme already on Instagram. So
It's their 100th anniversary, isn't it?
well, it said it's 100. According to the guide, yes. Does it make sense? No. It's 100 years since Esme was changed in 1921. So they've been together for 100 years, whether they were married.
Vampires that can perform weddings.
But
Again, they're dealing with a newborn, and
Do we know, can Liam perform like Celtic weddings or something?
But I have to say, so I'm putting my personal business out there. I met my husband in December. We were living together by the end of January. August, we were married. It happened in less than a year, and we're celebrating 24 years. So I think it's very possible that her love for him overcame her newborn state.
no, and I'm not saying like a matter of time, because I have an aunt and uncle that got married after 6 weeks and have been married like almost 50 years. So I get that. It's more of how could she, like it says that she has a dress, like she, we know that she had like a full on, wedding dress and stuff. And that, again, that he would have wanted to get married like under God, like probably by a minister. How could she physically do that and have the strength to do that when we know that Esme is not Bella? We know that she's killed people. How would she physically within a first year, unless it was like she was changed January 1 and they got married December 31st?
Well, when does Eliasad come into the picture? Because I can totally see him doing a ceremony. He knew Carlisle. He was with the Volturi. They're cousins. They don't live that far.
Oh, who?
He's Eliasad.
Oh. But according to the canon of Twilight, they haven't met. He hasn't met the Denali's or any of them until later, till after already Edward and Esme are with them.
I have to look this up now.
Yeah, because it changed. Because originally I had it like stuff written as because he doesn't, because at that point Eleazar would have been with the Denali's, and even if he knows Eleazar, he doesn't know that they're with the Denali's because he doesn't know the Denali's exist.
I'm sorry, the school closing has wreaked havoc, and anyway, real life is happening. I'm sorry, I missed you.
I'm confused because I don't know if I'm
Okay, We need to end this so I can go have a life.
I will message you, Amy, because now I'm gonna do some research because I need to find out. I need to have this in my head.
I know. Dive into Carlisle and Esme.
But again, I kind of feel like if they were married by a vampire, that we would at least know. So
and let me tell you that the if I write a sex scene, it's gonna be better than what you get in Bridgerton. All these people that are freaking out over the scenes in Bridgerton, I'm like, okay.
You're like, hold my beer.
okay, it's just fun and fluffy.
Snow in Middle Tennessee. Yes. All right. Thank you all for joining us tonight and for dealing with all of our lemon talk here at the end.
Yes.
Someone said, whoa, wait, I had to take a work call. I came back and the conversation was totally different.
We need a whole chat just for lemon, I think. So.
Yeah.
So everyone go check out my Instagram. I have a whole bunch of links. So if you want to find my fan fiction or Ask Esme Cullen or links to this to watch past episodes, they're all in my link tree on there. And we'll be back with Twilight Tuesdays later in the month. I don't know, Lori, what are we doing with this?
I don't know.
Okay.
Let's figure out. See,
CBD.
I think they're changing school next week to like this godforsaken, I can't even wrap my brain around it. A-B hybrid schedule where I have half of my kids one day and half of my kids another day, but I have them all like they're all in class either remotely or face-to-face, but only half of them are face-to-face. I don't know. It sounds like a freaking disaster mess. I don't even know. I can't even wrap my brain around it. So
everybody send positive vibes to Lori.
Yeah. So I'm going to pass on next Thursday. Let's aim for in 2 Thursdays. Okay.
Mel, is that your birthday?
Mine's on a Wednesday.
Okay.
And would that be
after her birthday?
Doing a Rosalie and Emmett chat? Is that what we're up to? Mel's like, please. And I'm like,
happy birthday to me.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I'll start pondering the Rosalie and Emmett chat for possibly in 2 weeks. Okay. All right. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. This is amazing. Love it.
It's 2 weeks. When is the inauguration?
It's the day.
It's on my birthday.
Yeah. So 2 weeks is the 21st. So it's the day after.
All right.
It'll be a happy day.
Because immediately I was like, wait a minute, because I had a feeling it was close. All right. Because I'll be watching the inauguration. I don't know about you. Anyway.